Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce a dynamic leader and forward thinker, Pastor Tellis Chapman. As the senior pastor of Galilee Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan, Pastor Chapman has been a trailblazer in both ministry and community development. His leadership extended statewide as the past president of the Baptist Missionary and Educational State Convention of Michigan from 2006 to 2015. But his impact goes beyond the church walls. As the founder and president of both the Chapel Vision Community Development Corporation and the Midwest Community Development Corporation, Pastor Chapman has transformed Southeast Detroit and Michigan through innovative programs that uplift communities and change lives. A board member of the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated and director of the Pastors and Ministers Division, Pastor Chapman is recognized nationwide as one of the most dynamic preachers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Please join me in welcoming a visionary leader and servant of the people, our speaker for this evening, Pastor Tellis Chapman.
God bless you. You can sit down if you can. If you can't sit down, I understand why you can't sit down. Being in this kind of worship ambiance, if you have any sense and reflect upon your journey, you kind of find it difficult to be in control of yourself. Honorable leader, visionary, president, and premier preacher, Dr. R.A. Williams. You've been an inspiration from afar and up close for so many years. Thank you for the challenge to dig deeper and to reach higher in this work that we call the preaching ministry. Thank you for the humbling and honorable invitation to come and share with so many people from across this country and abroad. You could have asked anybody who I know would be do a much, much better job than I will fathom doing here tonight. Dr. Waddles, you've been a big brother. Thank you for your brotherhood on a consistent basis. And we bless God for you tonight. And perhaps I wouldn't be where I am today were it not for Frank Edward Ray. Thank God for you all. I've already been blessed tonight, and so have you, to have sat at the feet of this young giant, preacher par excellence, expositor, pontificator, Dr. Alan Patterson. We bless God for you tonight. You know, he brings swag to the preaching moment. He's with this GQ-ish posterior, and it works. Thank God for you. I could call other names here, but I'll fail to call the right name. I do have some kinfolk here tonight. My mother's youngest sister's children, some of them, are here. I want you all to stand wherever you are. Show them some love, won't you? And all of our brothers here tonight. And then I have a big brother from Detroit, the incomparable Nathan Johnson. And then I have some brothers here from Oakland, California. You all, wherever you all wave your hand. Thank God for you all and your presence. If I forgot to call anyone else's name, then I'm wrapped up in this corrupt corporation called flesh. I solicit your prayers as I know you'll be praying. Every head bowed. God our Father, thank you for this day, for grace, for love, for mercy, for care, for kindness, and for your affording us this precious and priceless privilege to gather in this place which has been hallowed for holy usage. We've already heard your word explicated, praises rendered unto you by the many gifted voices. Breathe upon us afresh now your Spirit. Hide me behind the cross, that those who assemble will see you and hear from you, and give you the praise, honor, and glory. We are already giving you the praise, therefore, in advance. Granted in the strong and saving, able, abiding, accessible, powerful, perfect, pure, prodigious, mighty, marvelous, matchless, and majestic name of Master Jesus. The people of God said amen. There's a word in the 10th chapter of the book of Leviticus. Wherever Sister Debbie is, I thank you for serving as the conduit and facilitating my coming here tonight. First Lady Debbie, thank you. She's probably somewhere floating and working. Thank you, Dr. Waddles, for the generous presentation and introduction. Beginning with the first verse, and it might seem as an odd approach to this kind of setting. I think it is befitting. Nevertheless, here is how the text reads, beginning with the first verse. Here is how the text reads in the New Revised Standard Version. Now Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, each took his censer, put fire in it, and laid incense on it. And they offered unholy fire before the Lord, such as he had not commanded them. And fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord meant when he said, through those who are near me, I will show myself holy, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron was silent. That's enough. I want to tell you tonight, keep the bells ringing. Give God some praise for what he's about to tell you. God can handle himself. God is never devoid or deficient or depleted of his God self. God is never at any point of demarcation. The Creator cannot be circumscribed. The Lord has no limits. God has no boundaries. God has never been, nor is, or ever will be in need of anthropological assistance. all there is that has been created, God did it without the help of human hands. Darrell Coley put it this way: God is sovereign. He can do what he wants to, how he wants to, whenever he wants to, because he's sovereign. God is Lord. Therein lies the precious and priceless privilege of participating on God's agenda. It is an honor to do for God in the name of God, because God is never in need for the help of human hands. It is an honor. It is a privilege to serve God. But that service comes with sanctity. If there is anything ministers, preachers, pastors need to learn, is that God's service is not sufficient until it's sacred. And when entering into God's service, we enter into God's presence, not a place. And because of the sanctity that is warranted, it is dangerous to enter into the presence of God without the right disposition towards your duty. This is what the sons of Aaron, Moses' brother, did not comprehend. They had a myopic perception of what ministry entailed. And for their having gone into the holy tent to burn incense on the altar of incense, entered into the holy space with the wrong disposition, and God struck them dead. Could this be that hinders many ministries, and the message that could affect a miracle is that all too many preachers are approaching the space that requires sanctity with the wrong disposition? Hence, it turned out that some are dead and don't know it. Dead to reason, dead to justice, dead to speaking truth to power, dead to declaring justice rolling down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream, dead in their worship, dead in the rendering of their ministry. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, our presence before God requires devout disposition and decorum. According to Leviticus chapter 16, verses 11 through 14, the tabernacle was erected and established as the unique intersection for God and humanity to meet. But their meeting was facilitated by the priesthood. particularly the high priest, whose role it was to enter into the sacred space, into the Holy of Holies, wherein there was an altar called the mercy seat, upon which sacrifices were made in behalf of penitent sinners. According to Exodus chapter 28, verses 1 through 5, they were required to garb themselves with particular vesture, a robe, a sash, a tunic, a turban, a breastplate, and an ephod. In Exodus 28, verses 33 through 35, the hem of their robes were embroidered with pomegranate, golden, and purple ropery, between which there was golden or were golden bells attached, which was indicative of the life of the priest as the priest ministered, which signified that the priest remained alive while moving in ministry. And in the event of the priest not entering into the holy space with a devout disposition, they were struck dead, and therefore no verbiage, no reverberating sound from the bells were coming from the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, to the exterior. Now, the parallel to this truism and the practicality of this text is every person in this room today, particularly those of you who have accepted your call into the ministry, have been provided with a proverbial bell. And since that is your calling, and since that is your anointing, and since that is your responsibility, and since this is what our requirement is, let me challenge every one of you here to keep the bells ringing. We live in a mad, messed up, mundane, malicious, and maniacal world. We live in a world that's vulgar and venomous and vituperate and vile and mundane. And we live in a world that's wayward and wild and warped and wicked and tainted and tacit and touchy and polluted and perverted and mistaken and maladjusted. Yet this is the world in which we must minister. And a silent preacher is no good to a world that's saturated in sin. So I wish I could identify about 4, I'll make the 5th preacher in here tonight who has no hesitation, reservation, ambivalence, misgivings, second thoughts about ringing your bell. We have a Supreme Court in this nation that's politically manipulated. Somebody need to ring a bell. We have a nation that is so thwarted in its political posture that it is willing to follow a fool again. We need some bells ringing. You have evangelicals supporting the toxic and divisive rhetoric of a lunatic. We need to hear some bells ringing. Human trafficking in the world is a multi-billion-dollar business. We need to hear some bells ringing. This, my brothers and sisters, is not what Nadab and Abihu understood. Could it have been that they were attempting to usurp the authority of their father Aaron and their uncle Moses by taking a one by one square box made of acacia wood, atop of which incense was laid and illuminated or lit or set ablaze so as to affect the atmosphere in the tabernacle? And in the event of their pedestrian posture and pursuit in the holy place, they were struck dead. But Aaron's bell kept ringing. If I could identify Aaron here tonight, it would be helpful, because there are some things that are essential for preachers to comprehend, that they may be forever inspired and encouraged to keep the bells ringing. Can I try to tell you? Your motive must match the ministry. Thank God for ministry. There is no greater deed that one can do than that one does for the Lord. Here is how Willie Morganfield said it: serving the Lord will pay off after a while. Now, that lyrical expression references or has eschatological references, but serving the Lord has some existential benefits. We know it'll pay off after a while, but serving the Lord pays off right now. Serving the Lord turned the sea into a sidewalk. Serving the Lord led to a river becoming a roadway. Serving the Lord led to a den of lions going on a crash diet overnight. Serving the Lord converted a fiery furnace into a fellowship hall. Serving the Lord turned a jail cell into a worship center. Serving the Lord turned the cold, darkened, and dusty grave into a shrine of victory. There are existential benefits that come forth when you serve the Lord. But serving the Lord comes with sanctity. Nadab and Abihu didn't quite get it. They indulged a rather unscrupulous, indecorous, profane activity in a divine space from beclouded minds. In other words, they operated out of ignorance. And whenever indecorous activity in the sanctuary is implemented, it's a sheer exhibition of ignorance rooted in religion. That's why Paul said, I would not have you to be ignorant. That's why Jesus prayed for his crucifixers and executioners at the foot of Calvary, forgive them, for they don't know the consequences of their decision. This is how you get genocide in the Sudan. Ignorance rooted in religion. This is how you get apartheid in South Africa. Ignorance rooted in religion. This is how and why over 6 million Jews died in Germany. Religion that's rooted in ignorance, and ignorance that's rooted in religion. These young brothers took an approach to the altar, and God burned them because they didn't render authentic ministry that the King James Version called a strange fire. They are happening all over this nation and all over this world. Anything that does not comply with the Holy Writ and God's instruction are described and best described as strange fires. Same-sex marriage is a law in this land. It's a civil right, but the Bible calls it a strange fire. Common law allows men and women to stay together, and it might be well in a place like this, but it's still described as a strange fire. My brothers and sisters, God ordained government, but he never meant for crooked people to run government that was established by the Creator. And anytime you get a nation of people who can overlook intelligence with feminine gesture as the most qualified president in presidential history, but have the egregious gall, guts, and chitlins to say that America is not ready for a woman to be president. Yeah, well, your mother is a woman. And possibly the one who taught you how to read and write and spell woman was a woman. And I hope that you married a woman. And while you're asking, is America ready? I'm an American. You're an American. What's the problem? We've got some strange fires. In North Carolina, there's a soul brother who is struggling now for his political candidacy, as a Republican Party has withdrawn its support from him because he has a history of visiting porn websites, but will turn around and get behind a convicted felon who sleeps with porn actors. That's a strange fire. A nation who will not allow a felon to vote, but will allow a felon to run for president. It's some strange fires. What they did was strange, unauthorized, because the ministry of incense was ordained to override foul odor. In the tabernacle, the altar of incense was set ablaze, emitting pleasant emanations of fragrance, because the sacrifices that were rendered in the tabernacle was a messy business and accounted for odoriferous emanations. In other words, it didn't smell good. All of that blood, all of those guts, all of those sacrifices, but the incense was designed to infiltrate the odor from the mess that was made during the sacrifice. Perhaps some people never leave the church revived or delivered on Sundays is because all too many individuals stand behind the sacred desk who are just as messy as the mess that was made by the ones who need to be set free. The role of the Levites assisting the priest, and the priests were to make sure that the altar of incense remained ablaze. This is going to bless your heart. Hence, they lit the incense every morning and every evening. And they had to have the right motive. And in the event of their not having the right motive, they were struck dead. Therefore, there was no one to stir the ashes of the incense that burned. There was no one to stoke the incense that was added. And people who came looking for ministry missed the ministry because they came looking for fire and all they saw were remains. Nadab and Abihu, because they weren't consecrated, they were cremated. Therefore, they were shoveled out with the same material that was burning on the altar. I'm almost tempted to say, burn, baby, burn. Therefore, they became ashes rather than assets. The question we have to answer tonight is whether we have presented ourselves to a people week after week who come looking for the right kind of fire, but they end up observing and experiencing someone whom the Lord has already burned up. Therefore, we end up being ashes rather than an asset. Use me, Lord, in your service. Draw me nearer every day. I'm willing to run all the way, pain by heartache, scorned by a loved one, but just a little sunshine every now and then, because I'm willing to run all the way. Simone Biles, the most decorated gymnast in the history of Olympic gymnastics, had to withdraw from Olympic competition because of what is called the twisties. That is an imbalance of one's equilibrium as they twist and tumble while in flight. Therefore, she could not do what is called stick landing. It was always off balance. In other words, she was all right while approaching her time for flips and turns and the pommel horse. But when she became airborne, she lost her equilibrium. Say it again. She got up, but she couldn't get back down. Nadab and Abihu got up, but they couldn't get back down. And some preachers think they're the only preachers on the planet. They're God's greatest gift to the pulpit. That's a preacher who's gotten up, but who somehow, somewhere along people bragging on them, came up with the twisters and they can't get back down. I need my bells ringing. To keep your bells ringing requires that you present yourself as proof of God's pity. We serve a God who is merciful. I said we serve a God who is merciful. Psalms 33:18 says that the eyes of the Lord are upon those who fear him and have hope in his mercy. Psalm 94:18 says, my foot almost slipped, but God's mercy held me up. Psalm 103 verse 17 says, God's mercy is from everlasting to everlasting. Psalms 23 verse 6 says, God's goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 4 says that God is merciful and that God is rich in mercy. James chapter 5 verse 11 says God is pitiful and of tender mercies. Jude chapter 1 verse 21 says, keep yourself in the love of God and look for his mercy. Frank Williams and Mississippi Mass say, your grace and mercy brought me through. I'm living this moment because of you. I want to praise you and thank you to your grace and mercy brought me through. Now, the parallel to this truism is the fact that this is the theological rationale for our presence in this place. Evidenced by what the role that the priest was to carry out in the event of lighting the altar of incense. When they walked into the tabernacle, because of the incense that burned overnight, the room was still filled with smoke. And because of the incense added in the morning, they would exit through the smoke to the exterior. Don't miss this. Mercy met them at the door. Can I say something that I hope is not to be taken personal? I smelled myself on one occasion. And I was smelling like a woman. You know, at church, I smell something sweet. And I didn't want anybody looking at me kind of funny. But it dawned on me that when I had gotten in the car, my wife had been in the car before I got there. And she had her cologne on. And I smelled the seat belt. And her fragrance was in the seat belt. And what was in the seat belt got on my clothes. When the priest walked in the tabernacle, they walked through the smoke. And when the priest walked out of the tabernacle, they walked through the smoke to get out of it. So on their way in, smoke got on them. And before they got out, smoke got on them. This is the rationale as to how you made it. This is the rationale as to how you've been successful. Mercy got on you at the door. Now, if you're not too arrogant, conceited, cocky, narcissistic, and too cerebrally protruded, you can give God some praise and glory in this place, because it really wasn't the movement that accounted for the bells ringing. It was mercy in the movement, which was evident that the Lord had granted them mercy. What does mercy look like? It looks like Joyce Banda, who could give up a fleet of jets and limousines as she becomes the first female leader of a nation in Africa, and says, I don't mind walking because I'm already used to it. What does mercy look like? It looks like the Hudson River becoming a landing strip. What does mercy look like? It looked like a preacher sitting in this room tonight who has done everything that warrants death, hell, and the grave, but the Lord put some smoke on you. Let me bid you good night. Mercy shows up when we go in, and when we come out, we walk through mercy. Goodness and mercy has been following us all our ministry. When you present yourself as proof of God's pity, it is evident that God retained the relationship. Nadab and Abihu died in the tent of meeting. They were shoveled out as ashes. But Aaron still had his garb. And Aaron still had the bells on the hem of his robe. So when Nadab and Abihu died, Aaron was still alive because God showed him mercy. You're not impactful in your ministry because you got violins in your voice. It's not because you've been trained and caressed your cranium within the corridors of some astute seminary. You are here tonight because God put some mercy on you. You are not where you are tonight because you are melodic in your pulpit oratory. You are where you are because of God's tender mercy. Whenever you approach the holy space, never walk in with an air of arrogance, but humble yourself under the mighty hand of God and watch God put some smoke on you. Oh, praise his name. When Nadab and Abihu fell dead, Aaron didn't say a word. Before I leave you tonight, I need to remind you, you ought to keep the bell ringing. And your bells keep ringing when you concede to the Creator's control. Oh, praise his name. God is in charge of everything. God is in charge of everything. It was God who suffused helium and hydrogen and hung it in the heavens and told a scientist to call it the sun. God put the lunar luster in a changing moon and gave it the propensity to regulate the seasons. God bespangled incandescent spheres against the black bosom of an ebony sky and made them twinkle like white diamonds on black velvet. God carved out the winding rivers, the meandering streams, and scooped out the ocean and flung the elements in the air to fall down and shape the shaggy head mountains. God regurgitated molten lava from the belly of the earth and gave shape to new land mass. God put color in a rainbow and hanged it around the shoulders of a dying storm. God knows what he's doing, and whenever one does what the Lord has commanded them, it has to be to the glory of God. God gets all of the glory from the fish in the sea, the beasts of the earth, those lofty clouds that move like automatic transmission against the blue ethers. God is behind the zephyr breezes that blow during the spring. God put the perfume in the precious petals of the flowers. Oh, praise his name. Whatever God has done is for God's own glory. Oh, praise his name. God does not need you or me to affirm who he is. Oh, praise his name. It takes Almighty to affirm Almighty, and only God can affirm God. Only Omni can affirm Omni. He's omnipresent, He's omnipotent and he's omniscient. So whatever he does is for his own glory. Oh, praise his name. Nadab and Abihu tried to usurp God's glory, and they were struck dead. So Moses turned to Aaron and said, this is what God meant when he said, I will make myself holy. Oh, praise his name. I will only honor those who are close to me, and I will get my own glory. Oh, praise his name. Thank God for his glory. When you get in the pulpit, it's not about your tailor-made suits. It's not about all of your bling. It's about God's glory. When you serve Almighty God, it's not about your name. It's about that name that is above every name. And at that name, every knee must bow and every tongue must confess. I'm out of here tonight. I thank God that God gets his own glory. Oh, praise his name. Whenever God gives you your calling, he gives you a bell. So go ahead and ring your bell. Oh, praise his name. Moses rang his bell down in Egypt, led God's people through the wilderness toward the promised land. Joshua rung his bell. He marched around the Jericho walls for a whole week. And on the seventh round, on the seventh day, he and the people gave a loud shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Ezekiel rang his bell in Death Valley. He rung his bell, and dead dry bones got up like a mighty army. Oh, praise his name. Paul and Silas ring their bell at midnight in a jail cell and call on the name of the Lord. Oh, praise his name. Oh, praise his name. Somebody in this house ought to be ringing your bell. If God gave it to you, you should not be ashamed to ring your bell. Rosa Parks took a bus seat in Montgomery, Alabama, and rang her bell. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and Dorothy Heights, and so many others marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, ringing their bell, marched on Washington, stood on the Lincoln Memorial, and rang their bell. Oh, praise his name. I need to remind you, there was a man who had a bell 2,000 years ago. They gave him a bell. Oh, praise his name. God gave him a bell in a little town called Bethlehem. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He cast out demons. He fed the hungry. And one Friday, on a hill called Calvary, they pinned him to a wood beam, a nail in each wrist, a spike in his feet. Oh, praise his name. A spear in his side, a thorny crown on his head. He dropped his head in the locks of his shoulder. He died for your sin and mine. And somebody said, we hushed the bell. We don't need to hear anything else about feeding the hungry. The bell has been silenced. But that was on a Friday, right early Sunday morning. Jesus began ringing the bell. He got up with all power in his hand. Oh, praise his name. And since the Lord said, I got all power, he gave you power to ring your bell. Some of you in here have been a little too quiet. This may be your last time But since you don't know, this is a mighty good time to get in some practice. Go ahead and tune up your bell. Go ahead and start ringing your bell. Go ahead and get ready for Sunday. Oh, praise his name. I heard Peter, Paul, and Mary said, if I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the evening. If I had a bell, I'd ring out danger. I'd ring out a warning. I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters. I'd ring it all over this land. Good evening, WHW. It's been good being here with you. But if you don't mind, if I had about 9 of you, I'll make 10 who feel like ringing. He's been too good for you not to ring your bell. He brought you too far for you not to ring your bell. He's done too much for you not to ring your bell. So since you got it, let the bell ring. Ah, ring it. Yeah, ring it. I can't hear you. Yeah, ring your bell. Ah, ring your bell. Yeah, ring it, ring it, ring it, ring it. Ah, ring your bell.